Hey frag heads and fragrance lovers, welcome back. Benjamin here, Scentaur Fragrance Channel, chatting it up about another beautiful fragrance. Today, it's Glacial Essence from the house of Bvlgari from their Bvlgari Man collection. This is a brand new fragrance release, or fairly new. Not everybody has reviewed it, and I'm here to share it to you today. Before we do that, please help me out down below. You know how to do that if you would like to. Again, that's your choice. But if you do like this content, and if you think I'm adding value and doing a good thing, please help me out. So this fragrance here, again, Bvlgari Glacial Essence, supposed to be inspired by the ice. We'll talk about that definitely in detail at the end of the review and the price and all that good stuff. But what's in this fragrance? What does the smell like? It has juniper and a green freshness and a crispness. You actually don't get any citrus off the top. So you don't get your bergamot, you don't get your grapefruit. This really doesn't have, it manages to be crisp and fresh, but it doesn't really have any of that transparent watery quality. And that already gives you a clue that this fragrance is not what you would expect, and that is not what I expected. So I was expecting a lot of grapefruit. You really don't get that. You don't get a transparent, cool, watery quality. You get a fresh, crisp juniper. So this smells more like a frozen tundra fragrance already. Then there is geranium in this fragrance as well, adding more to that classic, clean, almost transparent green quality. There's also interesting notes that you would not expect in this fragrance at all. There's artemisia, which is almost a licorice-like quality in the middle of the fragrance. It's very clean. It's more of a transparent, the floral side of it, but it's still different. There's also iris, which was not expected in this fragrance. It's more of a clean, almost like a white leather floral iris, which it does work in the composition, but again, quite unexpected. And then in the dry down, it's kind of simple. It has some synthetic woody tones and some clear wood and some things like that. It's just quite a boring dry down as well. So not only do you not get the big pop and the freshness and the opening you would expect with a lot of designer fragrances, the mid of the fragrance is this modern pseudo Fougere kind of thing. And it just, it works as a composition. It's blended pretty well. This is a Alberto Maria's composition, and you all know that he's kind of seen as the king of aquatics and the king of fresh fragrances. This does work, and it is smooth. It's rounded out. You can't criticize the blending, but the notes and how things come together and why certain notes were used in certain amounts, I really don't know why they chose and why they did this. To me, it seemed like, the Bvlgari was demanding glacial essence, and it seemed like Alberto Marias was almost like, we can't commit fully to this idea because it's too risky, or he thinks it'll be too simple, or maybe he just didn't want to spend a lot of time on it. So why not make it into more of a modern pseudo Fougere? And we know that gentlemen and the guys like our Fougeres, and it's going to sell pretty well just because it has those elements. I think it would have been much better if this fragrance would have committed to the idea of, ice and cooling. And, this fragrance, some people say they can detect menthol. It's a little bit cooling, but I don't detect much of any of that. This doesn't have a cooling wintergreen mint. This fragrance doesn't have a lot of clear, transparent grapefruit. This fragrance could have really worked with some white patchouli. You could have even done something interesting with some benzoin, or maybe did some kind of steam distilled vanilla or something odd in the dry down that was quite different. Even for a designer fragrance, this is mass appealing, don't get me wrong. We'll talk about the compliment factor soon, but gotta talk about the longevity first. But before we even do that, again, I just want to say that this fragrance, I actually had high hopes for it. I actually really like the house of Bvlgari. Y'all know that I love Bvlgari Man Extreme and Bvlgari Man in Black. Some people have joked and accused me of even taking Bvlgari money. Nobody's ever sent me any money, and if I get a fragrance for free, I tell you. So I'm actually giving this fragrance a lukewarm, if not a negative review, because I not only feel like this fragrance just doesn't I don't know, do what its name tells you. This doesn't smell like Antarctica. This doesn't smell like snow. This doesn't smell like ice. It doesn't do any of those things. And I think this is something that would be nice in the fragrance world. There's very few fragrances who have committed or even gotten close to this type of DNA. There was a winter fragrance by Azzaro. I can't remember what it was called. It was very strange. It was like more of a musk and ozone type of fragrance. It actually the fragrance is white inside the bottle and becomes transparent when it hits your skin. It was almost more of a novelty fragrance. Almost everybody has forgotten about that fragrance. This one is about one of the only other fragrances that has committed to a cool, a very, very cold water type of DNA. There's Astral Blue by Issey Miyake that committed to a very deep, deep in the ocean type of blue type of feeling, but not any that really are really inspired by ice. Yes, there's frozen versions. There's lots of cool versions, but does this really do what it was supposed to? I certainly don't think so. But is it a bad fragrance? No. And we'll talk about that soon. Anyways, with performance, you can expect about 7 hours out of this. It actually performs pretty well for a freshie, but again, it does have more synthetic notes. Is it off-putting? Not really, but in the dry down, it's kind of simple. And to me, it's not that the fragrance falls apart in the dry down and it doesn't blend well. It's just that it's too dispersive, or it just doesn't have anything to hold it down. I doubt that there's very little naturals in this fragrance, if any naturals. So you do get 7 hours. If you spray this up on clothes, maybe you can manage to get 8 hours of performance out of this. Projection is about average, and sillage about average, maybe slightly above average sillage. So it's not a bad performer. It does pretty decent as far as a fresh fragrance goes, but it's not everything I thought it would be. Compliment factor wise, this fragrance, again, it does pretty well, but it's not as good as any Aquatic. It's not as good as anything compared to like Invictus by Paul Rabanne. This one doesn't even come close. But I wasn't expecting it to even be able to compete with something like a big, sweet, loud Aquatic fragrance like that. As far as compared to other Aquatic fragrances, this one didn't get me as much compliments. Yes, the Fougere quality does add a certain confidence and maybe even a refinement to this fragrance. But is that enough to save this fragrance? I certainly don't think so. And I am a lover of juniper, so you might be very surprised that I'm a bit negative about this fragrance. Can it get you noticed? Yes. Does it smell pretty likable? Are there going to be people out there who like this fragrance? Absolutely. But is it really an amazing designer release? I certainly don't think so. So getting into my final thoughts, this is still a terribly expensive fragrance. You might be able to get it close to about $80 if you're lucky. And its full retail is about $113 odd. So if you want this fragrance, it's quite expensive. Again, designer fragrances are becoming more expensive, and I don't want to get into the economics of all that. But this fragrance here, it will eventually creep down to $50 odd eventually, and I think this fragrance isn't really going to get noticed or hyped or very talked about very much. And it's kind of sad to say that, but it eventually will become more affordable. But again, I've seen some people who think $50 is too expensive for a designer, and Bvlgaris usually don't get much cheaper than that. So is this fragrance really worth waiting for? I personally don't think so. I don't think this does anything terribly exciting or good as a blue fragrance. There's other hidden gem or forgotten blue fragrances out there that do a better job, like, In the Navy by Jean-Paul Gaultier, Azzaro Man Extreme, and there's quite a few other mass appealing fragrances that are underrated. So this tried to be a little bit different as far as a citrus and maybe aquatic fragrance goes. Again, this is definitely not a blue fragrance. I would say it's more of on the aquatic side of things. But again, it has very little even of that going on. So this fragrance is definitely in limbo. I think this fragrance has an identity crisis, I guess you could say. And it just doesn't come together successfully for what it is. This almost has a DNA of almost like a DS and Durga, but it doesn't really get close to what the quality should be and the blending should be, and it just doesn't have the elements it should be. Again, that's a funny comparison to say because DS and Durga is a great brand, and I like Cowboy Grass. But if you're into niche fragrances and if you smelled a DS and Durga, I think you could possibly say that this almost feels slightly inspired maybe by that. So maybe he saw Cowboy Grass, or I don't know, one of those fragrances, and maybe was inspired by that. Not really sure what's going on in this fragrance, or what the Alberto started thinking with this one. And again, maybe the Bvlgari and Alberto fought and went back and forth about how this fragrance was supposed to smell. Maybe this fragrance, didn't get edited. Maybe they didn't put a lot of effort into it. Maybe this is their first or second draft, or maybe Alberto did a draft and they didn't agree where the fragrance should go, and then Bvlgari switched it and changed it. Their second draft didn't really finalize or really didn't improve the fragrance and just kicked it out the door. I don't know. Anyways, I do think it's worth trying. Every fragrance is worth trying, and there are people who are going to love it. So wear what you love and rock what you got. If you like this fragrance, more power to you. I'm just not going to highly recommend it. I think there's plenty of other aquatic fragrances that do a lot better for cheaper, and blue fragrances and things like that definitely are a bigger compliment getter and things like that. So anyways, Bvlgari Man Glacial Essence, had high hopes for it. Y'all know I like Bvlgari. So I'm not saying this just to say it. I'm disappointed that this is not the fragrance I was hoping it would be. Anyways, guys, I hope that you enjoyed my review today. I hope that I did a good job, and I hope that you like what you're seeing. So if you did like my review, if you think I did a wonderful job, please like, comment, subscribe. Hit that notification bell right down there below. You know how to do all that. Share the video if you'd like. Tell a friend if you think I'm doing a good job. Again, I put a lot of work into being a fragrance reviewer and being a fragrance lover and enthusiast, and it helps me out a lot, and it means an awful lot, and I do appreciate you if you want to help my channel out. So have a beautiful day, everybody. I'll see you next time. I know that you're smelling great. Again, I upload Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I'm back on my regular schedule. So if you like that, if you like what I got going on, I'll see you next time. Pop in, tune in, and I'll see you soon, everybody. Have a beautiful day, and I'll see you soon. Bye.